Thank you. Thank you everybody for joining live. This is a recap of what's new in security. This is Amazon GuardDuty, our newest security service at AWS. We announced Amazon GuardDuty a week and a half ago at our 2017 reInvent conference on the Tuesday night. GuardDuty is essentially our newest security service. It's fully managed intelligent threat detection service, and what we're doing here is we're taking advantage of the fact that within AWS you have access to a number of telemetry sources by default without a lot of work on your behalf. So these are things like AWS Cloud Trail, which is all of your API calls, VPC flow logs, which is all of your unsampled net flow, and DNS query logs or DNS logs if you are using our EC2 default resolvers for your DNS requests. So there's a lot of data available in these log sources, these data sources, a lot of security value, and customers love the fact that they have access to these data sources in AWS by default. But it's been a little bit of an effort required on customers' behalf to take advantage of those data sources and doing real-time analysis on what is going on in my environment. And so that's what GuardDuty takes advantage of. So it's a little bit different take on threat detection than what you may or may not be using today. It's really focused on high scale optimizing for AWS in the cloud and really ease of use, both enablement and ongoing management. So these are some of the highlights of the key benefits of Amazon GuardDuty. So it's, again, intelligent threat detection at scale. So we're fully managing the service. We're fully managing the rule sets and the detections. It's got integrated threat intelligence from both third parties, CrowdStrike and Proofpoint at the moment, and AWS security. So it gives you access to AWS security threat intelligence through the service, pre-integrated, no work required on your end. It uses anomaly detection and machine learning that we're, again, managing those detections. We're continuing to iterate on them, add new ones at a pretty rapid clip. It's single-click enablement. We spent a lot of time on this. How do we make it really easy for you to turn on continuous security monitoring and threat detection and anomaly detection in all of your AWS accounts, whether you have one or hundreds, and not have to deploy agents or sensors or network appliances. How do we make it easy to be up and running in minutes? So we spent a lot of time on that effort, and I'll show you in the demo. We have broad coverage. So again, as I mentioned before, we look at this as something additive rather than competitive or instead of what you may already be doing with respect to traditional intrusion detection or intrusion prevention, because we're looking beyond the network and the virtual machines. We're looking into also your account and your account keys, your account credentials. So how do you, again, monitor that environment as well and detect behavior that would suggest that possibly your account credentials or account key has been compromised, as well as the network behavior and your EC2 instances. So much broader coverage. There's no performance or availability impact, so that's also a huge key benefit here. So again, because we're not having you deploy anything, there's no footprint in your account whatsoever, no sensors, no appliances, no bump in the wire. You can literally turn this on. It's operating completely on our infrastructure outside of your account itself. So we're consuming all the metadata associated with your account at scale, and we're profiling the behavior. We're comparing it against the threat intelligence we have, etc. And so this makes it really easy for you as a security team to turn on GuardDuty across your entire organization and not have to worry about what impacts could have on your workloads or the applications that are currently running in your environment. So a big benefit there. It's enterprise ready. So again, we've built a lot of features in here like multi-account support. So if you have hundreds of AWS accounts or thousands of AWS accounts, making it easier for you to enable across all of those accounts, aggregate to a single security-owned account. We've worked really hard to make that easy. Also, CloudWatch event support. So AWS CloudWatch events. This is another enterprise feature that allows you to, again, with not much work, it's pushing all of the findings both to the console but also out through CloudWatch events, which allows you to easily pull this into a SIM or a workflow system or Elk Stack or Slack or PagerDuty or whatever you may be using for workflow or SecOps. And then it's very cost effective. So we've architected this from the ground up to be extremely cost effective, cost efficient. Again, one of the key areas we were trying to hit is, again, how do we make this easy for you to turn on and utilize across all of your accounts? And that's not just going to be an ease of use technical achievement, but also how can we make it cost effective enough for you to be able to easily justify that. So what are we doing here? What kind of detections can we get with GuardDuty? So essentially, as I mentioned before, we have Proofpoint and CrowdStrike threat intelligence integrated into the service. So right out of the gate, as soon as you enable the service, we're going to compare all the IP addresses that we see. That's both for your communications with your EC2 instance, but also with your API calls against Proofpoint and CrowdStrike threat intel and AWS threat intel. And so we can tell you things like you're getting scanned or port probed or brute forced by an IP address that we know has a bad reputation, or one of your instances is communicating with a command and control server, or cryptocurrency mining, or things of that nature. So we can give you some very static type behavioral detections right as you enable the service. Or again, also if you're getting communications coming in either in your account API calls or against your instances from anonymizing proxies or Tor exit nodes. Then we move on to more behavioral analysis. So now we're looking at things like, again, in the first 7 days, we're profiling all of your EC2 instances, all the communication patterns, as well as all the IAM roles and API call patterns. And so this then allows us to go from a learning mode to then an active mode, and we can detect interesting things such as unusual behavior in your EC2 instance that would suggest that it may have been compromised, like it's scanning other instances in your VPC, or it's always pushed data into a database and now it's pulling information out of a database. Or similarly, we're getting API calls that are coming in from an IAM role, or credentials that are from an unusual geolocation or an unusual time of day, or they're making unusual API calls that they've never made before, like changing of password policy strength, or snapshotting a database, or list a number of list or describe calls that are suggesting they're looking around to see what they can find. So that's the behavioral anomalies that we have there. So learning again and profiling all of your both communication and your API calls and behavior in your account. And then we've pulled in some more advanced machine learning detections, and it gets really interesting where we've been able to train on our own accounts. We have tens of thousands of AWS accounts within Amazon, and we're training our systems to be able to detect more advanced attacks. These are things like data exfiltration via DNS, as an example. So how do you recognize, using machine learning, what DNS traffic, appropriate DNS traffic looks like, and what does DNS traffic look like that's being used for data exfiltration? Or similarly, zero-day or malware using domain-generated algorithms and being able to detect that accurately. So that's kind of, again, these are all fully managed. We're doing the management of these. You get these out of the box. And we're kind of very broad coverage and across multiple categories. And we'll continue to build on these very rapidly. And this is kind of what this goes to talk about. So we've put these in to Amazon GuardDuty. And we're continuing to develop on. We have a number of security engineers sitting next to applied scientists and machine learning, deep learning folks, and we're coming up with these detections, testing them, and then once we get to a good quality, we're pushing them out, and you get to take advantage of this. So the service continues to get improved. We push these out to our customers and partners. We get feedback from customers and partners, including requests for custom detections that they would like to do, etc. And in most cases, those custom detections are things that other customers want. So we work those into the service, and then again, our field and our organization, our technical account managers, our solutions architects receive and give that feedback as well. That goes back into us as well as AWS Security, providing more internal R&D on detections and things we can do with machine learning, anomaly detection, and then we feed that back into GuardDuty along with the threat intelligence from AWS Security and our third-party partners. And that flywheel continues on, and we're able to continually get better and better from a detection perspective. So availability, so we're available in 14 regions right out of the gate. So we're fully GA as of a week and a half ago. These are the 14 regions we're available in today. We have GovCloud coming early next year, and any new region going forward, we're going to work to be there at launch. So again, we're trying to provide full coverage, so that you can easily adopt GuardDuty in all your accounts and turn it on across all regions. And the reason that's important is even if you're not using all of these regions, you would want to know if your account keys or account got compromised, if somebody was spinning up unauthorized infrastructure in a region that you're not currently using to do things like cryptocurrency mining or other activity. And so by turning GuardDuty on across all regions, even those that you're not using, you're able to continually monitor and make sure that unauthorized infrastructure is not being deployed in a region that you don't intend it to be. A little bit about partners. We had 15 launch partners when we launched a week and a half ago. This goes again to the, I think, to the discussion around how this is very additive, essentially, to what's out there today. So you may be using many of these solutions today, and they're very complementary. And so many of our partners built integrations with GuardDuty already, whether it's Splunk or Sumo Logic or others pulling it into more of an aggregation solution to help you from a workflow perspective, CrowdStrike and Proofpoint on the threat intel side, but also Alert Logic and Trend Micro and Evident.io are pulling in the GuardDuty findings and allowing you to do additional things from there, whether they be full IDS, IPS, host-based IDS, or network-based IDS, IPS, and then Palo Alto Networks with doing blocking inline based on GuardDuty detection. So it's really a full mix with enabling GuardDuty and then providing many of our partner solutions that have integrated allow you to take additional actions. And then we have some players like Accenture and Deloitte and IBM and TrustWave and in the managed services space that can help you get started. And also do things more like incident response, investigation, managed event management, managed SOC, things of that nature. So there's a lot of ecosystem play here to really round out what we're doing in this space. So lastly, I'll hit on pricing before jumping into a demo so you guys can actually see what this looks like. So on the pricing side, we, again, try to be very cost efficient here, make it really hard for the customers to have a reason not to enable GuardDuty across all accounts and all regions. And so what we're doing is we're very EC2 heavy, as you can imagine. We're consuming massive amounts of metadata on your behalf at scale, processing in near real time, putting it through so many processing clusters that are doing these detections, whether they be stateful or stateless or threat intel based or anomaly detection or machine learning based, and that's very compute intensive. So the way we measure that is we'll basically price you on the volume of those data sources that we're consuming on your behalf and doing the analysis. And so these are things like CloudTrail, which we separate out, which we pull out separately, which is often is the account-based or account key credential compromises or behavioral-based compromises. And so we're doing $4 per 1 million events. And then on the VPC flow log and the DNS log side, we basically those are much higher volume, and so we bundle those together and charge you by gigabyte. And we have a tiered model there that allows you to, with volume discounting essentially built in. So this for those high-scale customers, you're able to pay incrementally less per gigabyte as you work your way up the volume tier. And then I would say, again, then we've added a 30-day free trial, and I'll show you that experience. And really, the 30-day free trial is meant to do two things. So one, it's meant to make it easy for you to enable a service, try it out for 30 days at no cost, no commitment, no effort, and you can see what kind of detections you get, really see the value of the service. But as importantly, I would guess that many of you don't know what volume of your CloudTrail and VPC flow logs and query logs you have, or DNS logs. And so this provides and I'll show you the experience, provides a free trial experience where we tell you during that 30-day free trial period exactly how many of those data sources we've analyzed on your behalf and the estimated daily average cost of the service if you continue on beyond the free trial. So really a effortless way to understand what is the real cost of GuardDuty without needing to try to do estimates and back of the napkin type estimates. One other thing I'd say here before we move on is that these sources, many of you may have these sources turned on, maybe you may not have them turned on or turned on everywhere. And one of the things we've done to make this very efficient is we don't require you to enable these sources. So by enabling GuardDuty, GuardDuty is going on the back end on our data plane. It's pulling these sources the same place that CloudTrail pulls, the same place flow logs and DNS logs pulls these data sources, and we're doing it in a really highly efficient way pruning off a lot of the data we don't need, that don't have security value, processing this in memory and near real time, and then we expunge the sources. So to manage your logs, you'll still want to pull your logs from these data sources, but we're able to do this in a highly efficient way such that you don't have to take on that additional cost if you don't so choose. And so that's another reason we've been able to get the cost really low. The last thing I'd say here is that based on what we've seen in the private preview, which was 7 months leading into our GA a week and a half ago, we had over 50 customers in that preview, and what we were seeing is, or what they're realizing is a cost of Amazon GuardDuty that was low single digits of their overall AWS spend. In most cases, it was less than 1%. So again, very cost efficient, being less than 1% of overall AWS spend in an account. So with that, I'll jump over to a demo here. Again, this is the EC or the AWS console. So you can see here under security, identity, and compliance, we've been added. Amazon GuardDuty is here. So I'll click on GuardDuty. You'll get this nice full first run experience as we do with most services. I click getting started, and again, no prerequisites required. I haven't had to turn on any log source. I haven't had to deploy anything. And we simply tell you this is what we're going to do here is we're going to analyze these data sources on your behalf and analyze them in real time for security findings. We ask for some role permissions. These are things like, this is pretty simple, describe instance, describe image, but what we're doing here is we want to be able to provide you metadata associated with a resource if it's an EC2 instance that we've identified as an issue, a potential threat. We want to be able to provide a lot of the metadata to allow you to take action quickly. And then once you review this, that's it. We just ask you to, your job is just to click Enable GuardDuty. So once you've enabled GuardDuty, you're up and running. We're now instantly, we've enabled those log sources in the back end. We're consuming them at scale, and we're starting to do the detections. And so if I go to a region here that I've already had enabled for some time in our US East region, you can see this is what it looks like when you start to get findings coming in. And so as findings come in, they get pushed here to the console, and then they also again get pushed to CloudWatch events. If I look at click on a finding, I get this nice set of metadata. This is what we ask for the describe images, describe instances for to be able to provide this. So this, for example, is a brute force. We've identified a brute force attempt on this instance ID. We tell you what account it's in, what region it's in, the severity level. Things like tags, public and private IP addresses, subnets, security groups, VPC, all of this is clickable as well. So if you want to go click on this and go right into the VPC console, you would be able to, or change the security group, or if you want to look at the EC2 instance itself, you can easily do that here. And then we give you some information about what we saw, who's the actor, where are they from. In this case, it was China. And then we have a count here of how often have we seen this. So if this is something like a brute force or a port scan that's happening over time, how often does it happen? And then here you can see this is what you would get in JSON form if you're pulling this out and again into a workflow or an email, Slack, PagerDuty, Splunk, Sumo Logic, etc. You're pulling that out here and you can get all this information. It's highly extensible. So that's what the findings look like as they come in here, and you're able to workflow those. We have the notion of archived, so you can move these into an archived state if you want to take them off the plate here. Where also you can click on these different elements. Let's say if I want to see all findings for this instance ID, I can click on this plus here. It adds a chip, and now I've sorted by all of the findings associated with this specific instance ID. And you can add more chips to it as you go along. So you can filter here. You can also save a filter if you have a set of accounts or instances that in particular you want to start with every day. You can save that filter and you can start there. Going down the list of settings here, if I go into general, you can always view the permissions, the role permissions that we looked at the beginning. So if we need any additional ones, we'll ask for them here. You can generate sample findings. This is if you want to test a workflow and see how the findings come in, and you want to see how pulling into email or Slack or SIM, you can generate sample findings on demand here. You don't have to simulate an attack. And then you can always suspend or disable GuardDuty. So suspend is basically, hey, stop analyzing. Let's say you want to run a pen test, or you do your weekly scanning with your vulnerability scanning system, etc. You can suspend GuardDuty so you don't set off a bunch of bells and whistles, or you can always disable GuardDuty. Suspend just turns off the analysis, doesn't send any findings, no cost is happening at that point because we're not analyzing anything. Disable is completely delete the service, and essentially in that case we're deleting any residual data, any logs that are being processed, any findings, configurations, etc., and you can disable the service. Then going into lists, so you can go in, you can give us a trusted IP list. This is another way of, instead of suspending the whole service, if you want to give us a list of IPs for pen testing or, again, vulnerability scanning, other activities, red teaming, and you wanted to basically have us ignore a set of trusted IPs, you can do that. And you can also give us your own custom threat list. So again, as I mentioned, we have AWS Security, Threat Intelligence, CrowdStrike, and Proofpoint integrated into the service by default with no additional subscriptions needed or licensing fees. And then you can add additional threat lists if you have your own custom list, or if you subscribe to other providers and you want to give that to us, you can add your own threat list here. And then the multi-account features. So if you wanted to do things like add multiple hundreds of accounts to be able to be managed by a security-owned account, you can see I've invited several here. You can go into an invite account. All we need is an account ID, an email address. We'll go back and check that on our internal systems to make sure that those match. You need the root email address on the account itself, and you put those in here, you hit invite, and it'll send an invite to the member account. What that will do is it'll send an email to that account address. It'll also appear, this bell will light up. This is the AWS Personal Health Dashboard, so it'll say there's a notification here for the other user. And then you will also get an indication in the mezzanine over here that there's a pending invite. Once accepting that invite, then you'll be back to this state, and you'll see that it's being monitored once that's been accepted, or if it's in pending state, or you can do the invite. This also can all be done via APIs. We support CloudFormation. You can do CLI. There's SDK for Boda 3, Java. So you can script this up to easily turn this on across multiple accounts, multiple regions, and then both enabling the service, which is one API call, as well as accepting that invite, which is yet one more API call. So with 2 API calls, you've got it up and running in an account and a region and linked so that you can aggregate findings. You can see here I've got 2 accounts that are generating findings. And then we have the free trial experience, as I talked about before. So on the free trial experience, you can see here that we have how many days have I been on the free trial, how many days do I have left. So I have 12 days my 30-day free trial. We show you exactly how many of these 3 data sources we've analyzed. So there's the CloudTrail logs, the VPC flow logs, and the DNS logs. And then we give you an estimated daily average cost for this particular account. So again, this takes all of the guessing and guesswork out of how much is this service going to cost me, and post free trial. And again, there's no cost during the free trial period. And then I've added here a link for the partners. So if you want to go back and look at the partners and see all the partners, we'll be adding additional partners. Another wave of partners are working on integrations as we speak. So this gives you an easy way to review what partners are integrated with the service and what other solutions you can use to add on to what GuardDuty is doing. So go back here to current. And again, we can look through a few more of these findings. Today we have 3 severity levels. We have low, which is the blue. We have medium findings, which is the orange here, or the amber. And then we have the high findings. Many customers ask, low, medium, high, is there other ways to customize that severity level? And the answer is, in our console today, no. What most customers are doing, there's actually a number associated. We have this in the documentation. There's a number associated with each of these levels that actually goes from 0 to 10. And then what customers are doing is, as they export these findings, if they're pulling it into a SIM or Splunk or other workflow, they're pruning out that severity number and they're adding to it. So let's say if you had a set of instances that are your production or your most important applications running, and you wanted to, those are more high severity. So if you get a medium severity or you get a low severity finding, but it's associated with your highest production, most critical workload, you may want to up that severity level, and that's context we don't have that you'll be able to pull in here. So that's the other thing that's interesting that customers are doing here is they're because you support CloudWatch events, they're pulling these into not just workflow and aggregation tooling, but they're also tying this to Lambda. And so what you can do with Lambda, AWS Lambda, is you can trigger remediation or automated activity based on the findings that come in. So if you have a finding that comes in that says you're being brute forced on a port, a developer left a port open, you can capture that through CloudWatch events, through CloudWatch events alerts. You can capture that, and then you can trigger a Lambda job to go close the port on that instance and notify the resource owner that you've done so. Or you can notify the resource owner to do so and tell them they have 24 hours to do it or 12 hours to go close that port, or you'll do it on their behalf. This also applies obviously to the account-based credential alerts. So if you get an account-based credential alert that says looks like an account's been compromised or infrastructure is being deployed in a region that's never been used before, or unusual instance types are being deployed, and you wanted to take automated action on that, you could rotate those keys as a Lambda job, as an example. So very extensible, easy to enable, consuming the alerts here in the console itself, being able to aggregate this by multiple hundreds of accounts, and then being able to pull that into and take automated action. So with that, I think we're out of time. So I thank you for joining today. Again, you can reach out to your AWS contacts for any additional questions, and we'll post this webinar for a future review.